Hey, KidMotion kids and families, welcome to our Not So Bummer Summer. I hope you've been participating this week. It's been awesome. And so we thought we'd do something that we often do at camp, and it's something called Bible Walk. See, God has given us this incredible gift called the Bible. And sometimes we think about it as a manual, but that's pretty boring, or a library because it's lots of different books, and that's true. But what if we thought about it as God's story? I mean, this is like an epic movie. It's better than the Star Wars trilogy, you know what I'm saying? And that means a lot. It's better than Marvel Universe or DC. It's God's epic story of what God is doing to create the world, to create people, to redeem people, to save people, and to send Jesus. And so what I want to do is teach you kind of through the main stories, the main people, the main places, and the main themes of the Old Testament. And then maybe some other time we'll do the New Testament. Because when we go to camp, we do Old Testament one summer, we do New Testament next summer, we kind of rotate this around. But what we're going to do is we're going to kind of see through the Old Testament. And so I'm going to give you key phrases and key motions to help you remember things so you really learn the whole story of the Bible. Because we really can't understand who God is, what God is doing, and what God has for us if we don't understand His story. And the amazing thing about His story is that it's always pointing and leading us to Jesus. Okay? So I've got a couple rules, all right? Couple rules. All right, first thing is you got to participate, all right? You got to participate. You got to engage, say the phrases we're going to say, do the motions. You've got to participate in. And the second thing is just listen and learn. Listen and learn. And the third thing, have fun. We're going to have a blast doing this. And so today we'll go halfway through the Old Testament, and then in session 2, we'll take the rest away through the Old Testament. And here's what we're going to do. I said we were going to see through the Old Testament. So every key word that I give you is going to start with the letter C. Start with the letter C, and I'll give you a motion to remember. And we'll review those and go through those. And so join in with me. Get your parents, get your brothers and sisters, invite friends, quickly pause it, get them over here. It's going to be fun, and we're going to learn a lot about God's amazing story. So the first thing I got to do is I want to teach you through some of the map. This is some of the map during Old Testament times. And so I'm going to teach you some places, and we're going to kind of learn them together, right? This first country over here kind of looks like a boot or a shoe. That's called Italy. Can you say that with me? Italy. And I've got Lexi here with me, and she's helping out, all right? So Italy. The second country here is called Macedonia. Can you say that? Macedonia, right. This red country here, that's Asia. Asia, can you say that? So we got Italy, Macedonia, and Asia. Now, if we step right down in here, all this area, this gold right here, that's Judah. All right, that's Judah. Well, that's where we'll spend a lot of time with God's people. So we got Italy, Macedonia, Asia, Judah, and then down here, let me give you a little hint for this one, all right? I'm going to paint something. See if maybe it kind of gives you a hint of what this country is. Any guess? It's a pyramid. Where are the pyramids at? Egypt. Yes, Egypt. So we got Italy, Macedonia, Asia, Judah, and Egypt. All right, one more time. Italy, Macedonia, Asia, Judah, and Egypt. Now, how do you participate? You got to say those along with me when I say them, okay? So let's do that. Italy, Macedonia, Asia, Judah, and Egypt. All right, we got a couple little islands I'll tell you about. This is Sicily and Malta, and it was right in this area where Paul in the New Testament was on a shipwreck. And then we've got Crete here, and then this one that points kind of like a finger is Cyprus. All right, so Sicily and Crete and Cyprus. And then I want to tell you about some bodies of water. Those are really important, okay? This big body of water right here is the Mediterranean Sea. Can you say that? Mediterranean Sea, okay? Mediterranean Sea. So we're going to learn that one here. Then we're going to go over here. This is the river in Egypt. Anybody know what that one is? The Nile River, okay? So we got the Mediterranean Sea, the Nile River, and then this one here, this is called the Red Sea with some kind of fingers off of it. So we got the Mediterranean Sea, the Nile River, and the Red Sea. Say those again. Mediterranean Sea, Nile River, and Red Sea. Now, let's go over here. We've got the Persian Gulf, all right? Maybe you've heard of that in the news, the Persian Gulf. And there's two rivers that come off of it. The top one's called the Tigris, and the bottom one's called the Euphrates. Kind of funny names, right? So remember the top one, T, Tigris. So Persian Gulf, Tigris, Euphrates. What's this one here? Mediterranean Sea, Nile River, Red Sea, Persian Gulf, Tigris River, Euphrates River. Now we've got some here that are really important, okay? This top one's almost like a lake, but it's called a sea. It's called the Sea of Galilee, all right? Galilee. And then out of it comes the winding Jordan River, and that takes us into the Dead Sea. So you get the Sea of Galilee, the Jordan River, and the Dead Sea, all right? So let's do all the waters again. We got Mediterranean Sea, Nile River, say them with me, Red Sea, Persian Gulf, top river's the Tigris, the bottom river's the Euphrates, Sea of Galilee, Jordan River, and the Dead Sea. All right, one more time, let's go through everything. All right, here we go. Italy, Macedonia, Asia, Judah, Egypt, all right? Mediterranean Sea, Nile River, Red Sea, Persian Gulf, top river's the Tigris, bottom river's the Euphrates, Sea of Galilee, Jordan, and the Dead. Good job. All right, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take just a moment with your siblings, with your friends, with your mom and dad, and look at the map and see if you can name everything on there, okay? Take a quick moment. All right, awesome. I hope you did well on the map. Okay, now we're going to get started into our story. We know that in the beginning of the Bible, God's epic story starts in Genesis, and it says, in the beginning, God created, all right? He did creation. And so that's going to be our first C word is creation, all right? And we're just going to take it, and we're going to make a motion like the world and say creation. You can do that? Creation. One more time. Creation. And God did some incredible things. I mean, we know the first day that he created light. The second day he created the sky. The third day was land and plants. On the fourth day it was the sun, moon, and the stars. The fifth day was birds and fish. The sixth day was animals and people. And on the seventh day, what did God do? He rested. Yeah. I mean, he's tired. That's a lot of creating. But God did this incredible creation. And we know that he created Adam and Eve, and he put them in the Garden of Eden, and we really don't know where the Garden of Eden is, but a lot of scholars tend to believe maybe somewhere up in this area because it would have been so lush and pretty because of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. So that's a possibility, but we don't really know. But God did this amazing thing called creation. One more time, what is that? Creation. And so God created the first two people. Who were they? Adam and Eve, right. And he put Adam and Eve in the garden, and they had everything great. They walked with God. They could talk with God. They got to name the animals and name plants. I mean, it was the perfect situation. It was like paradise. I mean, think about the best vacation you've ever taken. That's what it was like in Eden. But there was only one rule. You can't eat. God said you can't eat from one tree, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But we already know that there was someone evil in the picture, a fallen angel, one of God's former angels, and he was the devil. And he actually came one time to visit Adam and Eve, and he came as a serpent, all right, a snake. And he was in the tree one day, and he's talking to Eve, and he's like, why can't you eat from this tree? Well, God says so. God didn't know what he's talking about. If you eat from this tree, you'll be like God. You'll know things that God knows. And so he tempted her, and Eve knew. We've got this thing in our minds. It's kind of a conscience, you know what I mean? Like when we know, it's like God telling us what's right and what's wrong. Sometimes we listen to it. Sometimes we don't. And the serpent gave this fruit. We often say an apple, but we really don't know what fruit it was. But he gave her this fruit, and he said, no, take a bite of this. And instead of listening to her conscience and knowing what was right, she was tempted by the devil, the serpent, and she took a bite of that fruit. Okay, so for our next phrase, what we're going to do is we're going to take like we got an apple, take like we're taking a bite, and we're going to say conscience, because they didn't listen to their conscience. So we got creation and conscience. Well, then Eve took it to Adam, said, Adam, you ought to try this. And, guys were kind of down, like, okay, and he took a bite of it, and they eat the fruit, and then they realized that they didn't have clothes on, that the devil had tricked them, they had done wrong in God's eyes, and God came looking for them. And he said, what have you done? And he said, because you've disobeyed me, you've got to be cursed. You got to be kicked out of my garden. You had everything perfect here, and I only gave you one rule, and you disobeyed that. And so Adam and Eve were cursed out of the garden. So we're going to take our hands real strong, and we're just going to get some authority. Like you're kind of mad, angry, and you're going to go cursed. So we're going to go creation, conscience, cursed. One more time. Creation, conscience, cursed. And so Adam and Eve are cursed out of the garden. And it says then Adam and Eve have some sons. They have Cain and Abel. And the Bible tells us another boy, Seth, and they probably had more children. Cain was a farmer and Abel was a shepherd. Well, Cain got jealous of Abel one day because now they're out of the garden and things are not perfect anymore. Sin and disobedience has entered the world. And so Cain was jealous of Abel. And so Cain killed Abel, and that just started wickedness in the world. And so wickedness grew and disobedience to God. And so finally you come to this guy named Noah. You remember Noah? And man, the world is just full of wicked people. And Noah, for 120 years, can you imagine that? 120 years, Noah tried to turn the people back to God. But when he was 600 years old, yep, I said that right, 600 years old, God told Noah, hey, I want you to build an ark. He's going to build a boat. Not just a small boat, a giant boat. Now here's the thing. Where Noah lives, there's not that much water. He's probably somewhere in this area or this area. I mean, they're not near major water, and it doesn't even rain that much. So when he starts building a boat, let alone an ark, the people think he's crazy. And it took years to build. And this ark was 450 feet long. 450 feet long. That's long, right? 45 feet high and 75 feet wide. It had an upper, middle, and lower decks. So it had 3 decks. And have you ever seen a train go by and it's carrying those big shipping cars on the back? Do you know how many the ark could hold of those? 330. 330. And so his wife and his 3 sons and their wives got into the ark. Now, we often think, well, how many animals did he take with him? 7 of every kind, right? Well, he took 7 of every clean animal, a male and its mate. He took 2 of every unclean animal, a male and its mate. He took 7 of every bird, male and female. So that's a lot of, it was a traveling zoo. That's what was on the ark. And so they get on the ark, and people think they're crazy, and then it starts to rain. You ever been in maybe a house or a gymnasium when it starts to rain and you start to hear it and you just do it? Can you do it like this? And it starts to rain. Kind of do it with me, everybody. And then the rain gets a little harder. And then it gets really hard and it's just raining and raining hard. It's doing that for 40 days and 40 nights. It just kept going and kept going. And then it started slowing down. And after 40 days and 40 nights, it stopped. Now you can imagine you're on there with every animal. That's a lot of animal poop, right? And it would have stunk and smelled. And they were on the ark for a year and 10 days before it finally came to rest. It came to rest on top of a mountain. And when Noah and them finally got out, what did God send? A rainbow. And that was his covenant. A covenant is bigger than a promise. It's a serious promise. A covenant, he said, I will never destroy the earth again by rain. So what we're going to do is take our hand, like we've got kind of the ark kind of floating in it, okay? And then we're going to take our hand over here and do a rainbow, and we're going to say covenant. Can you do that? Say covenant. What is it? Covenant. So we got creation, conscience, cursed, covenant. One more time. Creation, conscience. Oh, I messed up, didn't I? Creation, conscience, cursed, covenant. Sometimes you got to check me, okay, all right? And so that's what happened. They made this covenant. But then people still they wanted to get to God. And so some guys got an idea. They said, let's build a tower to God. And it was kind of somewhere over in the area of Babylon and Babel, kind of somewhere over in this area. And they built this tower. It was called a ziggurat. And a ziggurat were these towers that kind of would rotate and go around, and they'd kind of keep going up and up. And these guys thought, we're going to build a tower to the heavens. We're going to get to God. And the leader of this idea was a guy named Nimrod. Have you ever called someone a Nimrod? It kind of means, it's a kind of derogatory mean kind of, we're saying like, you're dumb. You know, you're a Nimrod. Well, they built this tower, trying to build this tower to get to God. And it was bricks of clay that were held with things called shine. And we kind of maybe call it kind of asphalt, but they didn't have asphalt back then. So they grew that and built that. And the bricks were baked in an oven. They started building this tower, trying to get to heaven. And so they were going to build this, and they thought they could do it. And they built a tower, and it only got 300 feet tall. 300 feet tall. And God stopped them. Now, do you know how tall the Empire State Building is? 1,250 feet tall. Now, we've built towers like that, bigger, but God didn't stop those. Why? Because we weren't trying to get to heaven or trying to be like God. He stopped them because their intentions were to try to be like God or to get to God. And so what he did was, as they got to about 300 feet, everybody spoke the same language. He started confusing their languages. Everybody started speaking in different languages. Parlez-vous français? Hola. Hurumoken. They were just speaking and they couldn't understand each other. And so there was caused confusion. They couldn't work and build. So they stopped the building and went their different ways. And that's where then we began different languages throughout the world. And so God stopped them by creating confusion. So we're going to put our hands together like we're just talking and babbling. And we're going to say, confusion. What is that? Confusion. So we're going to go creation, conscience, cursed, covenant, confusion. All right, one more time. Creation, conscience, cursed, covenant, confusion. All right. Now the next thing was a guy got a call. I'm going to show you a city over here. We're going to put a city right here. And that city was right off the Persian Gulf. It was a port city, had a funny name, just called Ur. And in Ur lived a man named Abram. And Abram got a call by God. God called him. Of course, he didn't call him by a cell phone, but we called him by his cell phone, all right? And he said, Abram, I want you to go to a new land, and I'm going to make you the father of many nations. I'm going to make your kids as much as the sand of the sea, and your people are going to be my people. And so Abram got together. 4 people went. And how you remember it is, do you like to put salt on things? Salt on your French fries, salt on your green beans, mashed potatoes. I love it. Oh, yeah. Salt makes things. Well, salt's the way we can remember the 4 people that Jesus called, or that God called, all right? It was Sarah, Abraham, Lot, and Terah. Can you do that? Sarah, Abraham, Lot, and Terah. So God made a call to Sarah, Abraham, Lot, Terah. Let's do that. Creation, conscience, cursed, covenant, confusion, call. Who got the call? Sarah, Abraham, Lot, and Terah. So Sarah, Abraham, Lot, and Terah took donkeys, not camels, and they left Ur, and they kind of made a journey, and they got up here, and they came to another city. And that city was called Haran. They were about halfway to where they were going. And in Haran, Abraham's dad, Terah, died. So Sarah, Abraham, Lot, and Terah died there. But they weren't done because they had to go all the way in. And so they were going to head all the way here and down into this area. And I called, remember all this Judah, but this area at the time, I'm going to put a C there because it was called Canaan. Okay, and we're going to do this, Canaan, because it's in between the Mediterranean Sea, Sea of Galilee, Jordan River, and Dead Sea. It's in between the water there. So we're going to say Canaan, okay? So we got the call. Who got the call? Sarah, Abraham, Lot, and Terah, and that brought them to Canaan. Who got the call? Sarah, Abraham, Lot, and Terah, and that brought them to Canaan. Well, there, guess what started happening? They started having children. Okay? They started having children. But then a famine forced them out of Canaan, and they had to go all the way to Egypt. Because Egypt had plenty of food stored up. And Abraham went to Egypt. He actually got wealthy in Egypt, and he came back to Canaan. And there he had Isaac, and Isaac had sons, and then Jacob and Esau, and then Joseph actually was, put into slavery by his sons, and he ends back in Egypt. And so the nation started to grow. Abraham started having children, and God's people started to grow. So we're going to take our arms like this, like we're rocking a baby, and we're going to say children. All right? So we got the call. Who got the call? Sarah, Abraham, Lot, and Terah. That brought them to Canaan, and there they had children. Can we do all those? Here we go. Creation, conscience, cursed, covenant, confusion, call. Who got the call? Sarah, Abraham, Lot, Terah. That brought them to Canaan, and there they ended up having children, okay? So I said that Joseph, they'd gone back to Canaan and then went through all those children, and Joseph gets there, and Joseph actually ends up back in Egypt. And Joseph ends up being the number 2 guy to Pharaoh. And guess what happens? Another famine happens in the land, okay? So another famine. So a lot of God's people have to come back, and guess who comes to Egypt? Joseph's brothers. They don't recognize him because he looks like an Egyptian now. He's got shaved head, and Egyptians would often wear eye makeup and black. So they didn't recognize it was Joseph. When Joseph finds out, hey, it's me, your brother. And he took care of their people, and Pharaoh let their people come and have food. Well, after that Pharaoh was another Pharaoh and some other Pharaohs, and God's people started growing. The Israelites were getting larger and larger in Egypt. And one of the Pharaohs down the line, he said, I don't like this. I don't like all these foreign people being in our land. Guess what? We're going to put them into slavery. And they started building the pyramids and building great buildings. And so the Pharaoh put them into slavery, and they had to carry. So we're going to do this. We're going to say carrying, because they were the slaves. So we're act like we're really holding a heavy load, trying to hold on to it. We're going to say carrying. Can you do that? Carrying. So got the call. Who got the call? Sarah, Abraham, Lot, Terah. That brought them to Canaan. There they ended up having children, all right? But their children started carrying because they were slaves, okay? So God had this plan. After years and years, he's like, I've got to get my people out of Egypt. And so he comes to a guy named Moses. Remember Moses? Moses was actually one of the Pharaohs was going to kill all the baby boys of the Israelites. And Moses' mom hid him in the Nile River. And Pharaoh's daughter actually found Moses. And so Moses was actually raised in Pharaoh's home. And he was like, he grew up with with Pharaoh's son as his brother. And so when that Pharaoh became Pharaoh, Moses was like number 2 in command. But one day he saw how the Egyptians were treating his people, and they actually were beating some of the slaves. And Moses went over and killed that Egyptian and buried him in the sand, and he knew that he'd be found out. And so he fled way out here to Midian. For 40 years, Moses stayed in Midian, till God called him. Finally, remember a burning bush? He walked up to this burning bush, and it was God talking. He says, "This is holy ground." The bush wouldn't burn up, but God said, "Hey, you're going to go to Egypt. You're going to get my people out." And Moses is like, "Nope, not me. I don't even talk good. I kind of stutter." And he goes, "That's okay. You're going to take your brother with you, Aaron, or he can talk well. You take him with you. Moses and Aaron, you're going to go, and you're going to help get my people out." So Moses and Aaron come back to Egypt, and it begins a contest between Moses and Pharaoh. No, Moses was just this kind of the speaker. It was between God and Pharaoh. So we're going to take our hands together like you're in a tug of war, and we're going to say contest. All right? Can you do that? Contest. What is it? Contest. So we got creation, conscience, cursed, covenant, confusion, call. Who got the call? Sarah, Abraham, Lot, Terah. That brought them to Canaan, and there they ended up having children. But in Egypt, they started carrying, and now there is a contest between who? God and Pharaoh. That's important. It's between God and Pharaoh. And so Aaron and Moses get there. Aaron's 3 years older than Moses. He's a good speaker, so he does a lot of the speaking. Moses has got this rod. It's just a straight stick from an almond tree. And it was kind of a sign of authority, and God would use that rod to do a lot of the miracles, because each time they would come and ask Pharaoh to let God's people go, what would Pharaoh say? No. And so Moses said, okay, God's going to send some plagues. The first plague was he turned the Nile to blood. I mean, that was their water source, everything, and he turned it to blood. Moses said to Pharaoh, will you let God's people go? Nope. So then more plagues came. Frogs, gnats, and lice. Oh, have you ever ran into a cloud? Maybe you've been on the soccer field and you ran into a big cloud of gnats. Imagine gnats everywhere. Then there was flies. Oh, you ever been on a farm around cows, horses, and there's lots of flies? I mean, imagine flies everywhere. Then the fifth plague was their livestock got sick and started dying. After each one of these plagues, Moses would go, will you let God's people go? And Pharaoh would say, nope. And then there was boils. Boils are like massive sores on your body. And then there was hail, hailstorm and locusts. And then the final one was darkness. Could you imagine that? It would just get so dark constantly. That would be awful with no sun. But after each of those 9 plagues, Moses would say, we let God's people go. And Pharaoh would say, no. So the contest continued between God and Pharaoh. But on the 10th plague, God was going to send a death angel. And it was going to be the death of every firstborn in Egypt. And so Moses told all the Israelites, take the blood of a lamb and you paint that over your doorway. So it was almost like he was just kind of saying this. If you had a door, you just put the blood over top of your door. Okay? And that way, when the angel sees that, he will pass over. And he will go on to the next house. And so all the Israelites did that, but the Egyptians didn't. And when the death angel came, the 10th plague, he killed all the firstborn in Egypt, including Pharaoh's son. So Moses finally came to Pharaoh and said, will you let God's people go? And he said, go. Get out of here. Okay? So the cool thing is that they were covered. They put the blood over their door, and we're just going to say covered. The Israelites were covered. But if you didn't have the blood, you were not. Okay? So we had a contest between who? God and Pharaoh. How many plagues? 10 plagues, but they were covered. Again, contest between who? God and Pharaoh. How many plagues? 10, but they were covered. All right, let's go all the way to there. Are you ready? Creation, conscience, cursed, covenant, confusion, call. Who got the call? Sarah, Abraham, Lot, and Terah. That brought them to Canaan. There they ended up having children, but their children ended up carrying because they were slaves in Egypt. And then there was a contest between who? God and Pharaoh. How many plagues? 10 plagues, but they were covered. All right. That's first. We're halfway through the Old Testament. So let me quiz you real quick on the map. We'll do that one more time, and session 1's done. What's this? Italy, Macedonia, Asia, Judah, Egypt. All right. Mediterranean Sea, Nile River, Red Sea, Persian Gulf. The top river was the Tigris. The bottom river was the Euphrates. Then we had the Sea of Galilee, the Jordan River, and the Dead Sea. Do you remember what this city was called? That was a funny name, right? And they went to Haran. We got over here to see. And then one more city that's going to get really important for us, and I'll go ahead and put it in, because it's going to be an important city right here, is Jerusalem. You heard of Jerusalem? That's where Jerusalem is. And of course, we got Egypt. Okay, one more time. Let's do our first half. Here we go. Creation, conscience, cursed, covenant, confusion, call. Who got the call? Sarah, Abraham, Lot, Terah. That brought them to Canaan. There they ended up having children, but their children ended up carrying because they were slaves. And there was a contest between who? God, Pharaoh. How many plagues? 10 plagues, but they were covered. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to talk about the crossing of the Red Sea, and we're going to have kings and civil war and lots of good giants and Deborah. I mean, we're going to have some good stuff. So can't wait. Join us for session 2.